Well, we can talk about that too.
um, because I know you've heard the comments, and I even heard it myself. But I don't understand how someone who calls themselves a Christian and lives, or says they're living by like the Christian faith, but goes ahead and supports abortion.
Mm-hmm.
It's very conflicting. I don't understand how that's possible. I physically can't wrap my head around it.
Mm-hmm.
Because Christianity is all about supporting life,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Democratic Party's all support on getting rid of it, killing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Because you were touching a little bit on it before about, you believe that God's going to judge us also by who we vote for, who we support.
Mm-hmm.
If I supported a murderer, but I'm a Christian, what's that really say about me?
Right.
I'm going to support somebody who's going to be passing laws that say it's okay to kill a baby after 15 minutes of birth. What? I'm supporting that.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how far down the support ladder I am, I'm still on that ladder of support. Whether I'm just a basic voter, whether I'm passing it somehow from one department to the other. If I wrote the bill up, you're somehow supporting this action. I don't know. Your thoughts?
No, I agree. When it comes to things like abortion, like when we're talking about border control, right? And you're talking about things like, okay, should we have open borders? Should we have closed borders, right? Or should we have a mix of the two, which is immigration, right? I think that you can be a Christian and fall anywhere on that line because that's a political issue, right? That is something that is there are reasons for all of it, right? So if you have open borders, then it's like, okay, we want just to be an open country. Okay, I can understand why you want to do it. I don't think it's a good idea. Stop playing footsies with me.
Not bad.
I don't think it's a good idea because then just from the disease, right, point of view, like with this whole pandemic thing, if we would have closed our borders from China or from everywhere, really, just said, okay, we're not going to allow anyone to come in until all this thing's done, it would have went through the whole world, and then it wouldn't have come to here. I mean, it eventually would because,
You can't close your walls forever.
yeah, exactly. But things like that. Being able to, we have the Constitution, so certain things that we have to do, So, but I can still see Christians disagreeing on that, right? The age of a driver's license should be 18, should be 16, should be things like that. I can understand. But when it comes to things like abortion, I think it's probably the biggest one is. It comes down to a lot of people want to put it down, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts, is people want to bring it down to a woman's choice. That's not what it is for the Christian. It can't be a woman's choice for Christians. And the reason is because it comes down to life. What is life? It's not choice, it's life. What is life? And science says that life begins at conception. Scripture says life begins before conception, just in the sense of God is the one that knows that you're going to be alive. So your life is already, in a sense, living. You're not alive yet. Your soul, your spirit hasn't been created. But in a sense that your life is there. Like it's in God's mind. And then when you are conceived, Scripture is very clear that you're not just being conceived and it's your DNA. That's the physical manifestation of everything. But the Bible is very clear that it's God who's actually deciding on what aspects of that DNA gets used, right? And so it's very much a life issue for Christians. And this goes back to the early days of Christianity. And I don't know if you've sat in on this class, but one of the things that we talk about is that in ancient Greek and Roman societies, one of the things that was a common practice, had been common for years in those societies and in the other societies as well, was if they did not believe you were viable to survive, they would take you out and leave you on a mountain as a baby. It was infanticide. That was a common practice. When the Christians came, they started taking those babies and they would raise them. And that's where orphanages come from, this idea of orphanages. You want to go even further back. The Canaanites, they were sacrificing their children and the children of their enemies, both, to the god Moloch, something like that. Start with an M. To him. And what's crazy about that situation is it's literally, they would have this bull, this humanoid bull, and he would have outstretched arms, and his belly would be a furnace.
The brazen bull, right?
Yeah. And they would put the child in the arms, and it would burn alive from the furnace of the belly. And they would have a celebration during that time as they're putting children onto this. And so God's like very clear, don't do that or I will kill you. Like, he's very clear on it. In fact, that's one of the reasons why he tells the Israelites to go into this land. He's like, you destroy everything. You know, if someone wants to hang around, you kill them. If they run away, you let them run away. But if they want to fight, you destroy them. You destroy all their altars. You destroy all their stuff. And that isn't just a whim of God. It took 400 years for him to do that, to implement that judgment onto those people. So when we come to today and the idea of abortion, right, it's very much keeping in line with God, with the biblical understanding that life is very precious to God, especially children's lives. Very precious to God. The innocence of children. I mean, Jesus says, it would be better if you had a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown into the ocean than to harm one of these little ones. And if you don't know what a millstone is this giant piece of rock that they use to crush grain. And he's saying it would be better for you to be drowned that way than to harm a child. So for God, this is important stuff. And so as believers, we cannot condone in any shape of the way. And so if there was someone that agreed with me 100% on every single thing, and they're like, yeah, but I also believe in abortion, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't vote for you. It's not a one issue thing. It's because you take life so lightly, those other things don't mean squat to you. You can tell me that, yeah, I believe that you should have all the guns you want, that the government should infringe on it. But if you don't believe that life is important, what stops you from, once you get into office, to say, you know what? Yeah, I don't believe that. In fact, I was listening to one guy. He's part of this group called Wall Builders, and their whole idea is just to bring up American history, and it has nothing to do with building walls, but it's a biblical idea about redoing history. And he said that he helps a lot of candidates get going, and he says, I only ask them 2 questions, because if they answer these 2 questions in a certain way, I can know their entire political life. And one of them is the abortion question. Do you support in any way abortion? And if they say, no, I don't support abortion in any way, he's like, I can know. I don't have to ask them about their other political beliefs, because they all stem from that one belief of what is life, right? And so when you say, well, it's a woman's right to choose, no, it's not. It is not the woman's right to choose because she already made her choice. When we have sex, we have made a choice. Now, and this is where the whole thing of, well, what about rape? Okay, let's push that off to the side. We've actually had this conversation with Jasmine. Push that off to the side. All the rape, all the incest, all that stuff. Let's push that off to the side for a moment. That constitutes like less than 1% or something like that. I would have to get the actual, but almost insignificant number. So let's push that off to the side. The rest of the stuff, medical, push that off as well. The whole choice that you had sex and now you're choosing to end that child's life. That's the problem. Okay, so if we can all agree that if we let's just get rid of all that, which is like 99% or something like that of all abortions. If you have sex, you've made your choice. Either have that kid and raise him or give him up for adoption. There are literally tens of thousands of people waiting for adoptions right now. So let's do that. Okay, now let's deal with that last thing. The medical. Okay, let's deal with that last. Let's talk about rape or incest. Rape, right? Okay. Is it right that you were raped? No. And I've shared my thoughts on this. Mm-hmm. The guy should be castrated, taken the hot poker, sodomized, and then killed, right? And so there we go.
Right.
So now let's talk about what's the next step? You are traumatized. You were raped, right? You're traumatized. It was an evil act that was done to you. But taking the life of another is going to hurt you more. It's going to continue the traumatization. A lot of people are like, but you'll see that face if you're raising that kid. Give him up for adoption. You know, if that's the thing. But I'll tell you what, that child is going to be a blessing. Because you have gone through an experience and now that child it's half yours. And don't take revenge on that child for what that person did to you. An evil act does not mean that you should commit evil yourself. So that's the thing there. Now, if you go to the medical, first off, there been countless stories of people that were told your child's going to be deformed, your child's going to, won't be able to survive, that have survived. There are people that are born with Down syndrome that lead wonderful lives. So that stuff. The only thing that I can think of that is a possibility for abortion is that question of the health of the mother. And I've already said this to my wife. We have agreed upon this, that if she ever had a child and it was either her life or the child's, I would go with the child's. And not taking that lightly. Like, that's not something I'm like, oh yeah, screw you. Like, it's very much this, I know you're going to heaven. That child, I believe, would go to heaven as well. But she's led that life. And that child hasn't. The child has done nothing. He's not intentionally killing the mother.
It's the start of the babies and the end of.
Yeah. And is it going to be hard? Oh, yeah, it's going to be hard. But it's going to be, no matter what you choose in that situation, something's going to hurt. And it's going to be a lifetime of hurt afterwards. So I mean, when someone brings that up, to me, that's between you, the husband and the wife at that point. And I think that that should be something that you decide prior to having children. What are you going to do if that situation was the situation? Because, and think through all the things, right? Like, if you keep the mother, she's going to be depressed,
Right.
because it was her life over her child's. You know, I mean, if you've never encountered someone that had a miscarriage, that is traumatizing for parents, and some parents split over it. Just a miscarriage, you know. No one's fault. It's just that's what happened, and it's wreaks havoc. Think about the situation of mother's life over child's life, right? So to me, that is a situation for the family, but the rest of it, we as believers, we cannot endorse in any way. And any candidate of any party that even hints at, well, maybe, we should reject. Like if Trump said, yeah, I think about abortions, I think we should do that. Like talking to one person, they said, I believe if it helped him get elected, then he would do it. And I thought, except his actions don't prove that. He's come out pro-life. He's come out to the only president to actually go after defunding Planned Parenthood from, completely. I mean, this is not a guy that is, if it didn't matter to him, he would not even open that can of worms. He would just stay away from it and kind of wink and nod. Oh yeah. I'm pro-life. Yeah, wink, nod, nudge, nudge. And then not do anything.
And keep funding.
Yeah, and allow the funding to keep going. But he goes out of his way to defund the Planned Parenthood. Yeah. So So I don't think you can hold that against them. But yeah, abortion's one of those issues, and I think because it deals with life, I think it's probably the top issue as far as Christians deciding on which candidates to go to. And I think other issues like Second Amendment issues, that's secondary, to like the abortion topic,
right? Because
freedom of speech, I think, is also secondary. I think it's important. Don't get me wrong. I think these things are important. But as far as a Christian, what is the first thing that you should look for in a candidate? Where do they stand on the abortion issue?
Where do they stand on life?
Yeah, on life, because that's what it is.
And I think that kind of shows you maybe the kind of Christian you're dealing with too, is where they stand on life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
I'm a Christian, but I believe that it's okay to kill an old person if they feel like they want to just die.
Yeah.
Euthanize. I think it's okay to kill a baby after 15 minutes after birth.
Mm-hmm.
You call yourself a Christian all you want. You're definitely not a Christian.
Yeah.
So I think the abortion question is, I think what draws a line.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because let's take the Second Amendment. So you're a proponent of the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. I'm a proponent of the Second Amendment. I might even be a little more extreme than you are in my beliefs of the Second Amendment. But that issue, I can discuss with a Christian who's like, yeah, I'm completely against the Second Amendment, and I still think that they're a Christian. They're perfectly within the bounds of Scripture. Okay, I can understand that. Early church, they were pacifists. It wasn't really until Augustine and his work on just war that Christians became okay with war or fighting, serving in the military. So for almost 300 years, roughly 300 years, there's never an idea of being in the military or fighting for Christians. It was very much a pacifist community. Is that good? Is that bad? I mean, that's up for debate, right? So I think that for a Christian, you can have that difference. Same with freedom of speech. Following the government, that's a big thing right now. I've heard a lot of pastors, over in California, there's John MacArthur. He has his church, and they said, no, we're not closing down. And I've read a lot of pastors that are like, is that good for the gospel? Is that good for the Christian church? Shouldn't we be doing whatever the government asks? And so I think there is a conversation to have about that. Now, I don't agree with, the shutting down of churches, but I think there's at least a conversation you can have and still be Christian brothers, But again, the abortion issue is that issue that I don't think is an issue that you can say, well, I support abortion, and
it's hard to
because
put that and there because it's either one or the other.
Yeah, and so that's where it's, now, can you be a young Christian and support abortion? I think so.
I think that's not fully not complete understanding.
Well, yeah, you're not. I think that you need to mature in your faith. You need to look past it being a political issue, because that's what a lot of people will say. Like, if I talk on it, they'll be like, aren't you a pastor? You're not supposed to talk about politics. I actually don't talk about politics unless someone asks me.
In your service.
And well, no, not even.
Oh, at all.
Yeah, at all. If I have to be asked about politics to actually talk about it. In this situation, that's a part of what we're doing.
Right.
But actually, if someone wants to have a conversation with me, I'm not going to like just full on be like, yeah, and just go after them. I usually try to ask questions and try to like define things in a political, and so, but I also try to, as best I can, to keep that to myself. But they'll say things like, well, you're a pastor, you're not supposed to talk about politics, so you shouldn't be talking about abortion. It's like, to me, abortion's not a political issue. People make it a political issue, but it's not. And so that's one of the things that I have I've only mentioned it. I've never actually had a sermon on abortion. And that's not because I don't think I should, but rather I don't think, I don't preach on things I don't think I'm supposed to. Like I haven't felt God leading me to preach on that subject,